Hello and welcome back to Retro Ranger. Today we're talking about a real guilty pleasure for me, which is the action platformer series Shantae. If you've not heard of these games before, their namesake is for the main star and Half-Genie hero whose job it is to protect her town called Scuttletown. It's overly cute, but the games are incredibly smooth and overly fun that feature a metroidvania style gameplay with a light-hearted veneer that plays host to large and really impressive boss battles, some excellent level design, and some of the smoothest gameplay of the genre. From game to game, there is some cool continuity of story and characters, but we're going to go in order with the very first game on the Game Boy Color. Let's jump in. Okay, first up is simply called Shantae, and as mentioned, it's on the Game Boy Color. It's a later release in the system's life cycle. In fact, the GBA was already out at the time this was released, and the whole series was almost over before it began, as this game sold very poorly. So, who is Shantae? Well, she's best described as a half-genie, meaning her mother was a genie but her father was not, and this notion of half-genie and the insecurities that come from it continue throughout the games. Genies, even half-genies, are hired to protect towns, and that's exactly what she does for Scuttletown. As a town guardian, Shantae protects rather uniquely by whipping her purple ponytail at enemies. It seems silly, but it actually works akin to a sword slash, just cuter, I guess. This first installment introduces some series mainstays beyond, of course, Shantae herself. Her friends, Sky, Roddy Tops, and Bolo all make their debut, as does Uncle Mimic, an inventor and relic hunter that acts as Shantae's family. We're also introduced to the series' arch-nemesis named Risky Boots, a pirate queen who commands, of course, a pirate crew, and quickly becomes a mainstay throughout the rest of the games. The story here is a bit thin with this first game, but boils down to the fact that Risky Boots is hunting elemental stones that will power her steam engine and weapons. Shantae, warned by Uncle Mimic that this is a bad thing, is racing to get them first. To do that, Shantae will need to explore the surrounding island and Scuttletown to gain entrance to a number of dungeons filled with platforming dangers and enemies. Each will end with a boss before acquiring the elemental stone. I have to be honest that while this really sets a great foundation for the remaining games in the series, such as gameplay format, characters, and more, this game is not all that fun. It's a shame because knowing what was later built on top of it, they were really close to a solid formula. The physics of Shantae is way too floaty, and while you can definitely acclimate, it's a big contrast to the later entries in the series, which could easily be a gold example of physics done right. Combat too is unfortunately cumbersome, as many enemies take too many hits. They also don't get stunned temporarily, so when you hit them, they just keep walking at you, making for some enemy chores to jump around while you get to ultimately kill them and get whatever they drop. The stages themselves, or specifically the filler space between the destinations, is really long. Too long, in fact, to keep the pace resembling anything fun. Okay, that is a lot of gripes, but it's not all bad for the debut of this fantastic series. Graphically, the game is very impressive for the Game Boy Color, no question. It also has some ambitious game design ideas like the dance transformations that also became a series staple. course of the game, you'll learn new dances which allow Shantae to turn herself into animals that help her traverse the levels and really cement the gameplay as an early Metroidvania. In 2021, Limited Run produced a re-release for the Nintendo Switch, and if you're going to pick it up, I would highly suggest this version, as an original loose Game Boy Color cartridge is going to run you about $700 at the time of this video. And if I'm honest, it's worth nothing near it. This first title might be a little bit on the mediocre side, but just wait as the series really begins to take off from here. It would be another 8 years before we get another entry in the series. This is Shantae, Risky's Revenge. A lot has happened in terms of mechanics in that time, as the game improved all the foundation elements into a very polished sophomore release. All the complaints from the first game are gone, and the physics in combat are really dialed in. As the title would indicate, Risky Boots is back for some ice-cold revenge, and as the game opens, she steals a lamp from Uncle Mimic and escapes. After failing to stop Risky, Mayor Scuttlebutt fires Shantae as Scuttletown's guardian. Not to let her employment termination stop her from getting the lamp back from Risky Boots, Shantae sets out to find the magic seals which Uncle Mimic tells us is required to unlock the lamp's powers and likely target of Risky Boots. These are protected by the land's barons, and it's here that we're introduced to the best character of the series, Squid Baron. Squid Baron is a recurring character in the other games as well, and always good for some of the funniest dialogue in the series, though in general, the dialogue really elevates to the greatness level starting with this game in particular. Graphically, Risky's Revenge consists of beautiful pixel art for both the sprites and the environments, but in contrast has crisp, clean dialogue UI and character portraits. The sprites and animation for them are really top-notch. Dancing to transform into different things is still a major gameplay mechanic, and in addition to being overly easier to use, these transformation abilities are better incorporated into the level and boss designs. There's also other upgrades like getting more hearts, magic attacks, and the ability to make your hair whips faster, which all feel satisfying to improve. At the end of this game, it turns out that the lamp can steal genie powers, and that's exactly what Risky does to Shantae before she still overcomes the pirate captain, and the mayor finally restores her role as the guardian of Scuttletown without her genie powers. Let's move on to the next game though to find out what happens next. Alright, next up in the series is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. I hear what you're already saying. How can there be another Shantae game, let alone 3, if she's lost her genie powers? Unlike the others in the series, Shantae has no powers in this game, and she's not going to be transforming or using any magic. Instead, she'll be collecting helpful items that give her upgrades to help her traverse the levels and boss fights. How she gets these are, get this, with the help of Risky Boots. Yes, Shantae and Risky Boots now team up on a greater foe, the Pirate Master. Risky's pirate items have gone missing, and some of her crew has been turned into evil creatures by dark magic. The dark magic has to be recaptured, as it's actually a corrupted form of Shantae's genie powers. It's also a potential source for the revival of the Pirate Master, so once again, it's a race to get it first. With Risky's help, Shantae sails to various islands, each containing a unique level, to collect dark magic and overcome the dungeons within. Along the way, you'll also collect Risky's pirate items, only Shantae gets to borrow them for some serious upgrades. There's a cannon to gain additional jumps, Risky's hat to float through the air, Risky's gun to shoot things outside of the hair whip range, and more. These replace the dance transformations for the game. Ultimately, we're unable to prevent the revival of the Pirate Master, and we need to lay this captain to rest once again. There's actually multiple endings depending on how you approach the end boss, with or without collecting all the dark magic before. In the good ending, Risky, being captured by the Pirate Master, is released by Shantae and her powers are restored as a Half-Genie. After finishing off the Pirate Master, peace once again returns to the land and Scuttletown in particular. Of course, the temporary alliance with Risky also comes to an end, and it won't be the last time that we see her by far. Let's move on though to the next game.
Squid Baron!
Next up is Shantae, Half-Genie Hero. This is a noticeable addition for a few reasons. The first one that's super noticeable is the graphics, which now switch from a pixel sprites to smooth fidelity that matches the background art as well. Of course, it works well, and even though I personally enjoyed the pixel art of the previous game, this is in no way a letdown. There's also a return of dancing from earlier in the series, now that Shantae has her genie powers again, that lets you transform into animals, which still acts as the gating moves to progress the metroidvania puzzle. Story-wise, Uncle Mimic is working on a strange contraption called the Dynamo that's intended to keep Scuttletown safe, but before it can be completed, Risky Boots is back at it again and steals the blueprints. We get some great scenes and fights that harken back to earlier games of the series with upgraded graphics. Despite retrieving the blueprints, Mayor Scuttlebutt once again fires Shantae as the town's guardian and is replaced by another Half-Genie. Still not admitting defeat from being fired, she's off to help Mimic finish the Dynamo. It turns out Risky is more cunning than we gave her credit for, and we find out that she switched the blueprints for her own that makes the Dynamo turn all the genies of the Genie realm evil. Of course, Shantae can't let that happen, and so it's now up to her to prevent it from happening. Half-Genie Hero might be the most polished in terms of physics and combat, upgrades, level design, and more. This game is just smooth. The level design specifically is really dialed in to present the perfect blend of challenge and fun, and they incorporate the animal transformations perfectly to keep you coming back to revisit the levels to find those secret spots. Like the previous installments, levels are again discrete stages. Since we don't have Risky's boat this time around, we rely on her friend Sky, and specifically her pet named Wrench, to fly us from level to level. At the end of the game, you get a final showdown with Risky before she unveils her Tinkerbrain, which is powered by the Dynamo. Unfortunately, during this fight, Shantae is pulled into the Genie realm, the realm where full genies are, and it turns out their magic is corrupted, and Shantae makes the difficult decision to destroy the Genie realm in addition to the Tinkerbrain. All's well that ends well though, as Mayor Scuttlebutt once again hires Shantae as Scuttletown's guardian, Uncle Mimic makes a device that actually cleanses and saves the genie realm, and Risky Boots again escapes to fight us sometime in the future. One impressive offering with this release is that there is a ton of game versions to play, including the amazing Pirates Queen quest that lets you play through the game as Risky, which is definitely worth a playthrough after you complete the main game. If you've never played a Shantae game, this would be my suggestion to start, as it's incredibly strong in the physics, puzzles, and dialogue. The whole formula really comes together with this title. We're not done yet though, so let's move on to the next game. And now we've come to the current final game in the series, Shantae and the 7 Sirens. Getting away from Scuttletown, Shantae and the entire crew head out to a new island for the Half-Genie festival by way of invitation. When we arrive though, the other Half-Genies are kidnapped and it's up to Shantae to find them. Along the way we spot our old enemy Risky Boots and immediately we're suspicious of her intentions. Turns out though that the island natives, the Sirens, are behind the disappearances and we need to take down each to rescue our Half-Genie friends. Doing so will provide us with a transformational power like dash, double jump, wall climb, and more. These transformations, which are called fusion magic because the rescue genies lend Shantae their power, are instant, unlike the dancing of previous games. Don't worry though, dancing is still here too, but instead are used for additional abilities unrelated to transforming, like screen-wide attacks, revealing hidden things in the world, healing spells, and more. Unlike the disconnected levels of the previous few games, there is a return to form with one very large interconnected world that feels much more metroidvania than ever before. You'll be exploring many locations in the air and below ground to reunite with the captured genies. While most of the mechanics are identical to that of the previous game outside of what I've already mentioned, one last new addition is the monster cards. If you've played Castlevania Aria of Sorrow on the GBA, and it was one of the game that we recently covered on the GBA favorites video, you'll get a very similar vibe with these cards. Upon killing an enemy, you get a chance that their card will drop. These are collectible and in the menu can be assigned up to 3 in fact, because each card will provide you with some benefit such as stronger attacks, augments to specific skills, and many more. Collecting each is fun in its own right and it's a welcomed addition to the series. After destroying the 6 Sirens, it's revealed that Risky Boots is involved, if you had any doubts that is, by making a deal with the 7th and leader of the Sirens. Through some unknowing trickery with Shantae's friend Roddy Tops, the Empress Siren leader is unable to regain full life from the captured Half-Genies and in turn double-crosses Risky, stealing her life energy and regains most of her strength. What follows is one of the biggest boss battles of the series, spanning roughly 3 vertical screens. It's an exciting conclusion to a great game and absolutely delivers on feeling epic.
Where's Shantae? Do you think she's... Down here!
That sounds like...
Alright, and there's all the Shantae games released so far. With a pretty rocky beginning, I'm glad that the team at WayForward persisted because what came to follow is a great series flowing with lighthearted humor and incredibly smooth movement physics and combat, which all make for a really great foundation. It's also just great to see another game featuring a female protagonist, which, especially in the Game Boy era, was rather limited outside of Samus. Not tried the series before? Well, it's worth doing so, and again, I recommend the Half-Genie hero as a good entry, but really outside of that first game on the Game Boy Color, you really can't go wrong. For those that are no stranger to Shantae, well, let me know which game is your favorite in the comments down below. Until next time though, as always, thank you for watching Retro Ranger.